With Resident Evil 9 set for release next year, there's a lot of questions and theories floating around. One question in particular is, who exactly is going to show up? What familiar characters are going to make an appearance? This franchise has had a lot of characters come and go, and some who are a staple in the series. And with this game being set 30 years after the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3, the cast of characters we all know will be in their 40s and 50s. From the trailers released so far, we know that you'll be playing as Grace Ashcroft, daughter of Elisa from Resident Evil Outbreak. But we know these won't be the only characters to show up in the game. So in this video, we're going to go over some of the characters we all know and love from the series, and I'll be giving my opinion on if they could show up, or if they even will. So what characters are going to return? Let's find out. Everyone's favourite boulder abuser Chris Redfield has been a central figure in the Resident Evil universe since its beginning. Having appeared in several games in the series, he's had a lot of screen time, so could this game be no exception? Or will Capcom finally put him on the shelf for this one? Chris played a part in the recent games Resident Evil 7 and Village, but the latter being a much more involved role. In Village, Chris uncovers disturbing evidence that the BSAA, the organisation he was once a part of, have started deploying bioorganic weapons in combat, a direct contradiction of its founding purpose. And to the game's ending, it looks like Chris is going to Europe to investigate the organisation's corruption. Chris did work in Raccoon City alongside his other STARS comrades, but when you think about what characters are tied to that location, Chris just isn't one of them. That's why I believe he won't show up in the game unless the story is somehow tied to the BSAA. We will see Chris again, I'm sure, but in what form, I don't know. Maybe Resident Evil 10, or maybe a spin-off game like Revelations? If Chris does return in this game, it may be in like a mentor or tactical role, supporting Grace's efforts from a distance, or arriving late in the game with critical intel. But yeah, I don't think he'll make an appearance in this game.
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
Jill Valentine's been missing from the storyline since Resident Evil 5. She was under Wesker's control, but Chris and Sheva rescued her, and since then we heard she was being monitored due to the lingering traces of the chemical that was used to control her. This has left a major gap in her story, and with Resident Evil 9 returning to Raccoon City, the place where she barely escaped with her life from Nemesis and the nuke, the stage is set perfectly for her return. According to journalists, Resident Evil 9 will delve into the psychological trauma of returning to a place where it all began. We actually see this with Grace in the initial trailer, where it looks like she starts having a panic attack over the mention of her mum's passing. And there's few characters more intimately tied to trauma than Jill. It would be a missed opportunity not to involve her, especially as the game's tone leans into unresolved pasts. Some theories believe that Jill could serve as a guide or narrative foil to Grace, offering perspective from someone who lived through the original nightmare. Either way, I absolutely believe we'll see Jill again in this game.
It's me, Chris.
Is that you, Rebecca?
Rookie medic Rebecca Chambers first appeared in the original Resident Evil game, and has also starred as one of the protagonists in Resident Evil 0. Since then, she has been missing from the series with the exception of the movies. She shifted from the battlefield to the lab, working to develop vaccines against bioorganic threats. Rebecca is a fan favourite, and of course there's been discussions online about how she could show up again in the series. Some speculate she may be tied to the origins of Grace Ashcroft's investigation, perhaps as a behind-the-scenes consultant or whistleblower. Others suggest Rebecca may have been researching virus mutations, and possibly be connected to the BSAA's current unethical activities. So will Rebecca make an appearance? I'm gonna say not physically. I think we'll get a cameo, either like we'll see a letter or an email written by her, or who knows, maybe we'll see her STARS ID card or her wee medic bag lying somewhere in the rubble in Raccoon City. But yeah, I don't think she'll be in it, just like as a sort of like cameo Easter egg.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Barry Burton, the guy with the best voice lines in the original Resident Evil. The former STARS members had a few appearances in the series so far, such as the OG game, the ending of 3, and probably his biggest appearance in Revelations 2. In that game, we saw Barry travelling to a remote island to rescue his daughter Moira, while forming a bond with a young girl called Natalia Corda, a survivor with psychic abilities. The game ends with Barry being reunited with his daughter, but also shows that the survivor he helped maybe isn't as innocent as they seemed. Since that game though, these potential story threads have went unanswered, and considering it was a side game, it may just stay that way. Now, would it be cool if Resident Evil 9 tied up these threads? Of course it would, but I don't see it happening. and so I believe that Barry Barton will not show up in Resident Evil 9. The man's old now, come on, let him rest at home.
Well, isn't this one big family reunion?
I've already made a video talking about Wesker and if he's going to show up again in Resident Evil 9. For years we've all speculated that the game was going to be called something like Resident Evil Phoenix and Wesker was going to make a return to the series. If you want to hear me go a bit more in depth about Wesker, then I'll put a link to the video in the description and I'll put it in one of the cards above. Hopefully it's showing up now. But I'll give the same answer here as I did in that video. I don't think he's going to show up in Resident Evil 9. Capcom have said he's dead after the events of 5, and I know they've brought characters back before, but unless there's a clone of him running around, I just don't see it happening. But once again, if he does show up, I will lose my shit.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down!
Claire Redfield was without a doubt the most human of the Legacy cast, and by that I mean she isn't a cop or special forces like the others. Her journey started one fateful night in
1998.
what started as her going to look for her brother Chris quickly turned into a nightmare that she barely escaped. Since then she's been known for trying to uncover the corruption around Umbrella, as we've seen in Code Veronica. With Resident Evil 9 return to Raccoon City, it only makes sense for her to return to the series. With her protagonist Grace looking likely to go there to investigate, it would make sense for Claire to catch wind of it and decide to investigate herself. I mean, picture it now, you might even bump into her in the RPD station at some point, and you might even get like a wee reference to how Claire bumped into Leon or Sherry for the first time. Fans of the series have wanted her to show up again in a mainline game, and Resident Evil 9 is the most logical choice for this to happen. I do think she will appear in the game, but she won't be there physically, like physically there in Raccoon City. I expect she'll appear in like a voice call or a video call or something like that. I feel like if Jill's going to be in the game, then having Claire as well might take away each other's shine, so I think Claire will be in, but she'll just be in like a kind of background role.
Do you need help? Here, you can take my hand.
The daughter of G-Virus creators William and Annette Birkin, Sherry was exposed to the virus as a child during the events of Resident Evil 2, and although she survived the exposure, it altered her biology, giving her regenerative abilities. When we see her again in Resident Evil 6, she's become a US government agent specialising in anti-bioterror operations. And since Resident Evil 6 she's been MIA from the series. But given that Resident Evil 9 returns to the ruins of Raccoon City where her trauma and transformation began, her reappearance could make sense. People have theorised that Sherry could be tied to the plot of Resident Evil 9, that her G-Virus enhanced physiology might hold the key for understanding new bioweapons. There's also the comparisons between Sherry and Grace, in that both their parents could have been killed by Umbrella for their research and digging too deep. But do I think Sherry will return? Nah. Even though she has ties to the city, I just don't think Capcom's going to include her. I think there will be a reference to the Birkins and the G-Virus, so she might get mentioned, but nah, she won't make an appearance.
Hey, I told you I couldn't leave you in a Carlos's world. That would just be too cruel.
Carlos made his first and only appearance in Resident Evil 3, where he was part of a mercenary group hired by Umbrella to clean up the mess of the outbreak. In the original, he was a bit of a forgettable character, but the remake version of him was loved by the fans, to the point where I wouldn't even have had him in this video if it wasn't for the remake version. After escaping from Raccoon City with Jill at the end of 3, he's not shown up again since. There's been no mention of him in any other game, not even like a wee Easter egg mention. It's like he's vanished off the face of the earth. But considering his popularity from 3 Remake, I'm gonna say he will make an appearance at long last, albeit it will be in a very small role. I just don't believe in a cruel Carlos's world, so I think he will show up in Resident Evil 9.
Huh? What a weird customer.
The Resident Evil Outbreak series is a cult favourite, telling the story of everyday civilians trying to survive the fall of Raccoon City during the same timeline as Resident Evil 2 and 3. And unlike the trained protagonists of the core series, Outbreak focuses on characters like a beat cop, a waitress, a lab worker, and of course, Grace Ashcroft. We do actually see her in the trailer, so she definitely will be in the game, but it looks like she's going to be in flashbacks. Now, either these flashbacks could be what led to her death, or they could be events that happened during Outbreak, which means we might actually get to see some Outbreak characters in Resident Evil 9. Apart from Elisa, however, I'm not too sure who you would include. There's quite a few characters to choose from. Yoko's the only one I can think of since she did work for Umbrella in the labs. The other characters would be fan service for Outbreak fans. I'm going to say you will see one or two other Outbreak characters in the flashbacks alongside Elisa. What ones though, I'm not too sure.
Better get a move on. See you around.
Ada Wong's without a doubt one of the most popular characters in Resident Evil, a spy, double agent, and wild card whose loyalties remain ambiguous. First introduced in Resident Evil 2 as a mysterious civilian searching for her boyfriend, Ada was quickly revealed to be operating under false pretenses, and she since became a recurrent figure working for unnamed third-party organisations with deep interest in bioweapon data. Her last canon appearance was in Resident Evil 6 where there was two of her running around, but one of them was a fake, and the real Ada sorted her out. With Resident Evil 9 focusing on uncovering secrets beneath Raccoon City and exposing hidden operations tied to Umbrella, Ada fits perfectly. Her past work collecting virus samples makes her a strong candidate for involvement, and while her involvement hasn't been confirmed, Ada Wong's rarely far when the stakes involve global bioterrorism, corporate cover-ups, and hidden tech. If Resident Evil 9 aims to tie old threads together, Ada's return feels not only plausible, but just inevitable. And of course, if that means that Ada's going to show up, then another character is almost guaranteed to be involved.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
This is without a doubt the safest pick on this list. I think everyone figures that he's going to be in the game. Former rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy's life changed that night in 1998. His first day on the job happened to be the day the outbreak started in Raccoon City, and since then he's become one of the most iconic figures in the Resident Evil series. From his debut in Resident Evil 2 to being the flippy catchphrase spewing secret agent saving the president's daughter in Resident Evil 4. And with the series return to Raccoon City, one of the first characters you automatically think of is Leon. Few characters are as emotionally and narratively tethered to the city's fall as him. If someone were to revisit the ruins to stop a new outbreak or unravel a conspiracy, he'd be the top candidate. The most recent trailer from the developers joked that Leon would not fit as the protagonist of the game, stating that they wanted to make this a proper horror game, and Leon, being the absolute chad that he is, wouldn't be defenseless and scared by what's happening in the game. But they never said he wasn't going to show up in the game. But yeah, this is an absolute yes. There's just no way Leon does not show up in the game. He's just too popular of a character, and this game's all about tying up loose ends and past trauma, so he absolutely fits. I think you will play as Grace throughout the whole game, with Leon supporting you near the end, kinda similar to how Chris supported Ethan in Village. It'll be a change of pace probably from the stealthy and caution-like gameplay that you're going to do with Grace. And so we've come to the end of the list. Do you agree with my predictions? Let me know in the comments below if you do or don't, and also let me know if there's any characters I missed who you'd like to see show up again. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.